The white steeple of Snowpine Church pierced the gray November sky like a solemn prayer. A thin wind swept down from the Montana hills, rattling the bare branches and carrying with it the smell of smoke from a dozen hearths in town. Inside the church, every pew was filled. Men had taken off their hats and bowed their heads. Women clutched handkerchiefs against the chill and the sorrow. The town had gathered that day, not for a wedding or festival, but to honor their fallen sons. Farmers turned soldiers, husbands buried beneath foreign flags. The organ droned softly, and hymns drifted upward, like smoke from the stove at the front. The doors creaked open, and silence spread like frost across the pews. Heads turned. A woman stepped into the light, and the sight of her drew whispers that rolled through the church like wind over prairie grass. Hannah Whitfield walked slowly down the aisle. Her chin was lifted, her eyes steady, though her steps trembled against the wooden floor. She wore a wedding dress. Ivory satin, creased but clean, yellowed at the seams with age. Her full figure pressed against the fabric. In her gloved hands she carried a single lily, its stem wrapped in white ribbon. The hymn faltered. Someone muttered, "Is that her wedding dress?" Another hissed, "Has she lost her mind?" A sharp laugh burst from the back pew, too loud to be an accident. "Well," a woman smirked, "who's going to tell her she's pretty now?" The cruel ripple spread, muffled snickers rising and falling like waves. Every giggle struck Hannah like a needle to her ribs. Her breath caught. Still, she did not stop. She did not flinch. "If I keep my head high," she thought, "maybe they'll see me as someone who belonged to love once. Maybe they'll remember he chose me." Her husband, James, had once kissed her hand in this very church on the day they were married. Now all she had was the memory of that touch and the dress she wore then. Each step echoed louder than the hymn had moments before. When she reached the altar, she laid the lily gently among the other tokens of remembrance. Her cheeks burned. Her palms were damp inside her gloves. The laughter behind her did not fade. She turned on her heel, her face still raised though her vision blurred. She could not stay. She did not belong among their stairs. Pushing through the heavy doors, Hannah stepped into the brittle air. Snowflakes drifted down, catching on her veil. The cold slapped her cheeks as her boots crunched against the frozen steps. Shame clung to her like the wind, sharp and merciless. She reached the edge of the porch, chest heaving with short, broken breaths. That was when a voice came from the shadows. "I saw what they did." Hannah startled. Leaning against the oak beam was a man she hadn't noticed. His hat brim shaded his eyes, his long coat buttoned tight to his neck. Weston Dyer. Tall, broad-shouldered, a man known for silence more than words. He did not move closer. He only stood, steady as the mountains behind him. "I just wanted to honor him," Hannah said, her voice trembling. Weston nodded once, slow and certain. His voice, when it came, was gravel smoothed by gentleness. "You did." She swallowed hard. They laughed. They always laugh. "They don't know better," he said simply. From his coat he pulled a folded handkerchief and held it out. For a moment she hesitated, then took it, pressing it to her eyes. "Why do you care?" she whispered, her voice barely a thread. His gray eyes lifted to hers. "Because everyone deserves to be seen with respect. Especially when they're grieving." That single sentence pierced deeper than all the jeers. It did not pity her. It acknowledged her. Hannah's throat ached as she held the handkerchief. "I thought maybe wearing the dress would remind them. I was once loved." Weston's voice was quiet, but firm. "It reminded me." Her head jerked slightly at his words. She looked up, but he tipped his hat gently and stepped down into the snow. His boots crunched softly as he walked away, leaving her standing there with a lily stem still clutched in one hand and a flicker of warmth stirring beneath the cold. Sometimes all it takes is one man not to laugh. Sometimes dignity needs only one witness. The snow was falling thicker now as Hannah lingered at the edge of the porch. She did not notice Weston circling back later, didn't see him watching from the edge of the steps as she brushed slush from her hem. He studied her quietly, as though weighing something. When he finally spoke again, his words carried the weight of choice. "You did something brave in there," he said. Hannah turned, startled, wearing a dress. Her voice cracked with half a laugh, half a plea showing up. Weston replied, knowing they'd tear you apart for it. Her hands twisted at the lily stem. "It was foolish." "No," he said, his eyes steady on hers. "It was honest." Quote, she waited, bracing for the pity, the polite farewell. But instead, Weston cleared his throat. "I run a horse ranch north of town, Hollow Ridge. Too quiet, too cold, and always needing more hands than I have. I've been looking for someone to help around the house, someone steady, someone my daughter can count on." Her brows knit together. "You want to hire me. I want to offer you a place," he said simply. She shook her head in disbelief. "But I'm not. Look at me. People laugh at me." I'm not looking for pretty," Weston interrupted, then paused, softening his tone. "Though I wouldn't say you're not." Heat rushed to her cheeks. She looked down quickly. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes." Her heart pounded so hard it drowned out the wind. "Unless this is out of pity," she murmured. Weston's voice sharpened, not unkind but firm. "I don't pity anyone who works hard and holds their head up. I need help. You need a place." That's all. Hannah searched his face, weather-worn, unreadable, but not cruel, not mocking. Then a small voice broke the moment. "Daddy." A little girl bounded toward them from behind the porch, her coat trailing like a banner in the wind. Honey-colored curls tumbled over her cheeks, flush pink from the cold. She stopped in front of Hannah, wide-eyed, curious. Then she grinned, tugging at the edge of Hannah's dress. "Pretty lady," she said. Hannah's breath caught. No one had called her that in years. Tears welled instantly. She crouched down, her voice trembling. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Isla," the girl said proudly. Hannah smiled through her tears. Isla smiled back, a smile as free as the snow drifting down around them. Behind them, Weston stood very still, watching the two of them, as if seeing something new. And for the first time since James had been buried, Hannah felt the warmth of a handhold she thought she had lost forever. The warmth of being seen, truly seen, without shame. The wind howled down from the ridges, rattling the cabin walls of Hollow Ridge. Hannah had been there 4 days. 4 days of waking early, of fumbling through chores she had never been taught. The iron stove burned too hot or too low beneath her hands. Stew boiled over. Sheets were folded the wrong way. Her fingers ached from scrubbing with icy water. Each mistake pressed heavy on her chest. "Do not be a burden," she whispered to herself, again and again. Weston never scolded. He only set down a bucket of warm water by the stove or fixed what she broke without a word. That silence, more than anger, made her heart twist. She wanted to be useful, to belong. And yet she wondered if he had already begun to regret asking her to stay. That evening, Isla sat cross-legged on the floor, scribbling on a scrap of brown paper with a stub of pencil. She hummed a tune only a child could know, bright and careless. Hannah leaned against the doorway, drawn to the sound. "You're very focused," she said softly. Isla looked up, grinning. "It's you." "Me." The little girl held out the drawing. A crooked oval face, a round dress, a flower in one hand. It was clumsy, but clear enough. Hannah's throat tightened. "Pretty lady," Isla announced. Hannah knelt, blinking fast. "That's very kind of you." Isla scrambled to her father, who was mending tack by the fire. "Daddy, look!" Weston studied the drawing, his rough fingers brushing the torn paper edge. His eyes lingered on the smile Isla had drawn on the face. "She's pretty," Isla said firmly. Weston folded the drawing with care and slipped it into the pocket of his vest. He didn't look at Hannah, standing just far enough away to see everything, but not interrupt. Later that night, Hannah found a folded towel on the end of her bed, still warm from the stove. On top of it lay a single piece of hard candy. No note, just a quiet gift. She held it in her hand, staring at it until her eyes blurred. He's not like the others, she thought. And still, That doesn't mean he sees me." Days passed, and with them came whispers from town. Hannah heard them in the general store, slicing through the shuffle of boots and the creak of barrels. She was run out of Red Valley. Not just a job she lost, she ruined a family's name. That dress didn't mean anything. She kept her chin high, but the thorns of gossip scratched deep. One afternoon, carrying a basket of apples, she froze at the sound of a smooth, too familiar voice. Well, if it isn't the belle of the scandal Samuel Price. His coat too fine for Montana dust. His smile too sharp to be kind. Pale blue eyes that once followed her too closely, now glinted with cruel amusement. "I didn't expect to find you out here," he said, stepping closer. "You always had a habit of disappearing." "Why are you here?" Hannah asked, voice low. "I heard whispers of a girl with red cheeks and a ruined name." "I came to see if they were true." He clicked his tongue. "I came with an offer. Your name's still dirt in Red Valley. But I could fix that. A letter, a word to the right men. You could walk into a church without them laughing." Her stomach turned in exchange for what his smile widened for coming back. "For finishing what you started." Her hand moved before her mind. The slap cracked against his cheek. "You lied," she said, her voice shaking. "You ruined me. And now you think I'd let you own me again." His face twisted. "I gave you the chance to matter." A voice cut through the air like thunder. "She already does." Both turned. Weston stood at the fence, arms crossed, jaw hard. He walked closer, slow, heavy steps that shook the ground. "This is between us," Samuel snapped. "No," Weston said. "You made it about the town when you branded her with your lies. You made it mine when you showed up here thinking she was still defenseless." "She has a reputation," Samuel hissed. "You think honor is something you assign." Weston's voice was low and steady, but dangerous. "You don't get to define what she's worth," Samuel sneered. "You don't know what she did." Weston stepped close, face to face. "I know she wakes before dawn. I know she scrubs and sews and burns herself trying to make another's house a home. I know she threw herself in front of a horse to save my daughter, and I know not a shred of her needs your permission to be whole." Samuel's mouth opened, but no words came. Weston opened the gate, turning to Hannah. "You all right?" Her eyes brimmed, but she nodded. Samuel adjusted his collar with a scoff. "You'll regret this." "I doubt it," Weston muttered, not taking his eyes off Hannah. Samuel stormed away, his figure swallowed by the snow. For a long moment, silence hung heavy. Weston finally spoke, softer now. "You never have to answer for who you were, only for who you are." And in the stillness of that winter field, Hannah felt something shift inside her. A weight she had carried for years began to loosen. For the first time, someone had stood between her and the world, not to rescue her, but to remind her she was worth defending. Wait, before we move on, what do you think about the story so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to know. The fire in Hollow Ridge's cabin glowed low. It was a quiet night, too quiet. Hannah was drying the last tin cup when voices carried through the frosted window. She moved closer, the wind carrying every word. "Your daughter needs stability," said Reverend Emmett, the town pastor. "A home should have a mother as well as a father. You've grieved long enough, Weston. The child deserves better than a house kept by a woman like that." Hannah froze, the cup slipping into the wash basin. Weston's voice came, calm and steady. "I don't need another wife. I asked her to stay for help with Isla. She's done more than anyone expected. That's all. That's all." The words struck her harder than Samuel's sneer had. Her chest hollowed. She walked to her room, closed the door, and sat stiff on the bed. On the nightstand lay the wooden comb Weston had left for her, polished smooth with a tiny heart carved into its handle. She touched it, then slowly tucked it into her satchel with her shawl. Not someone worth fighting for, she thought. Just help. Just a place filler. By midnight, the cabin slept. Hannah slipped outside, boots crunching against the snow. She pulled the shawl tight and walked into the dark. But she wasn't the only one awake. Isla stirred in her bed, sensing the silence. She padded to Hannah's room and found the bed empty. The comb was gone. Her heart pounded. "No," she whispered. She wouldn't leave me. Throwing on her coat, she ran into the storm, calling into the night, "Hannah! Hannah!" The wind swallowed her small voice. She ran past the barn, across the frozen pasture, her little boots sinking deep. Snowflakes clung to her lashes, her breath breaking into sobs. Still she ran, until the storm swallowed her completely. When Weston found Isla's bed empty, panic gripped him like a vice. He burst into the night, lantern in hand, shouting their names. Neighbors joined with torches and dogs. The ridge had not seen such a search in years. Hannah stumbled through the snow, lantern swinging in her hand, calling until her throat burned. Then, beneath a lone pine, she saw it, a small figure curled in the snow, too still. Her heart stopped. She dropped the lantern and fell to her knees. "Isla!" Her cry ripped the silence. She gathered the child into her arms. Isla stirred faintly, stiff with cold, eyes fluttering open. "I've got you," Hannah whispered, rocking her tight. "I've got you, my darling. I thought you left forever." Isla hiccuped. Tears slid down Hannah's cheeks. "I thought I should." "Don't," Isla whispered. "You make my daddy smile again." The words struck like lightning. Before Hannah could answer, heavy footsteps pounded through the snow. Weston burst into the clearing, lantern light catching his ashen face. He dropped it and fell to his knees, pulling both of them into his arms. "Thank God," he breathed, pressing his forehead to Hannah's shoulder. Thank God Isla clung to them both, and Weston cradled them like treasure. For a long time, there were no words, only the sound of snow falling and 3 hearts beating against the cold. When he finally drew back, his eyes locked with Hannah's. The storm inside him was gone. His voice was quiet, raw. "I never meant what you thought you heard." He said, "I didn't say I didn't want you. I said I didn't need another wife because I already found someone who made this house a home. Someone who brought my daughter back to life. Someone who made me remember I could feel again." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small silver ring, worn but clean. His hand trembled as he held it out. "Will you marry me? Not out of need, out of choice. I choose you." Lanterns bobbed in the distance as neighbors arrived, drawn by the search. Hannah's eyes brimmed with tears. Isla looked up, lashes wet, whispering, "Say yes." And she did. The wedding was not in a church, but under a cottonwood tree on Hollow Ridge. Wooden benches, mason jars filled with wildflowers, children laughing in the grass. The town came, not out of judgment but respect. Hannah wore a plain cream dress she had stitched herself. Weston's hand never left hers. Isla beamed with a bouquet of daisies. When Weston said, "I do," the words landed like bedrock. And when Hannah answered, the laughter that rose from the town was no longer cruel. It was joy. Weeks later, Weston built her a room facing east, filled with books and a desk. Hannah taught neighborhood children there, her voice steady, her eyes shining. Isla sat proudly beside her, tracing letters with her tongue caught between her teeth. One evening, as the sun fell gold over the fields, Hannah picked up the old wooden comb from her desk. She smiled. "The day I wore that dress, I thought it was the last piece of love I had left. I thought my story ended in shame. But I was wrong. Outside, Isla chased fireflies." Weston leaned in the doorway, watching them both, his smile steady as the land itself. "I thought I had to be beautiful to be loved," Hannah whispered to the wind. "But being loved made me beautiful." Quote, and in the wide Montana sky of 1885, where snow once fell heavy and hearts were weighed down by judgment, Hannah Whitfield became something greater than a spectacle. She became the woman who taught a town how to see again, who taught a man how to love again, and who showed a child that every pretty lady is beautiful when love calls her home.